Okay. Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our Israelite Advanced Bible Study Night, 25th of July, 2023. We be going in on Baal worship, understanding Baal worship. Okay. You can go to our YouTube channel, Prophets of Awakening, and check out our videos. We have something like 600 to 700 videos that you can draw from and get the truth of the Holy Scriptures. If you like what you are hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those that feel the need to support the channel, you can see our cash app at the bottom of the screen. Okay. This is a non-messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah, first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by the Lord of Hosts, books of the law. Okay. Shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence. We'll read the prayers, do the Psalms, and then we're going to some current events, some need-to-know information, open up for some Q&A, and then we're going to the topic, which is the understanding of Baal worship. Okay, I'll give you a little background information on it and ancient history, and bring it up to today, to the present. Okay, this moment of silence is for the Lord of Hosts and all that He's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Oh Lord, I pray to the Lord my God. We make our confessions, O Lord, great and dreadful God, keeping covenant and mercy to them that love Thee and to them that keep Thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belong unto Thee, but unto us a confusion of face as it is this day, to the men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all countries whither Thou hast driven us, because of our trespass, that we have trespassed against Thee. As it is written in the laws of Moses, all this evil is come upon us. In the land of our captivity, here in the Americas, the Caribbean, Great Britain, and Africa. O Lord, according to Thy righteousness, I beseech Thee, and let Thine anger and Thy fury be turned away from Thy city, Jerusalem, and Thy people, and Thy holy mountain. O Lord, hear this prayer, and cause Thy face to shine upon Thy sanctuary and Thy people for Your sake. O Lord, open Thine eyes and incline Thy ears to hear and behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do, and defer not for Thy own sake. For Thy people need You so very much at this hour. Peace be unto You. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to read a psalm. Okay. Read Psalms 44. It's the former deliverances and present troubles. Okay. We have heard with our ears, O God, our fathers have told us what work Thou didst in their days, in the times of old, how Thou didst drive out the heathen with Thy hand and planted them, how Thou didst afflict the people and cast them out, For they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arm save them, but thy right hand and thine arm and the light of thy countenance, cause thou have a favor unto them. Thou art my king, O God. Command deliverances for Jacob. Through thee will we push down our enemies, and through thy name will we tread them that rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me, but thou hast saved us from our enemies, and hast put them to shame that hate us. In God we boast all day long, and to praise thy name forever. Selah, for thou hast cast off and hast put us to shame, and goeth not forth with our armies. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. Thou sellest thy people for naught, and doest not increase thy wealth by their price. Thou makest us a reproach unto our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, and a shaking of the head among the people. My confusion is continuously before me, and the shame of my face shall cover me. For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemes by reason of the enemy and the avenger. All this is come upon us, yet have we not forgotten thee, neither have we dealt falsely in thy covenant. Our hearts is not turning backwards, neither have our steps declined from thy way. Okay? If we have forgotten the name of our God, or stretched out our hand to a strange God, shall not God search this out? For he knoweth the secrets of the heart. Yea, for thy sake are we killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for a slaughter. Awake, why sleepest thou, O Lord? Arise, cast us not off forever. Wherefore hidest thou thy face, and forgettest our affliction and our oppression? For our soul is bowed down to the dust, our belly cleaveth unto the earth. Arise for our help, and redeem us by thy mercy's sake. Okay, so when I was reading this, it takes me back. I don't know about nobody else, but it takes me back to it's a witness in Isaiah 53. You see everybody want to trying to figure out who the servant is, suffering servant in Isaiah 53, and it says in Psalm 44, our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined. Notice it says our heart is not turned back, neither have our steps declined from thy way. Though thou hast sore broken us in the place of our dragons, and covered us with the shadow of death. Say, if we have forgotten the name of our God, or stretched out our hands to a strange God, shall not God search this out? For he knows the secrets of our heart. Here we go right here. 44 and 22. Yea, for thy sake are we killed all day long. We are counted as sheep for slaughter. So if you go to Isaiah 53, on that same note, okay, Isaiah 53 says in verse 7, Isaiah 53:7, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as sheep before shearers is dumb, so openeth not his mouth. So we see the same wording over here in Isaiah 44. And then it says 21, shall not God search out, for he knows the secrets of the heart. Yea, for thy sake we are killed all day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Awake, why sleepest thou, O Lord? Rise, cast us not off forever. So right here we see the suffering servant is suffering because he's been cast off. And we see in Psalms, they saying he didn't cast us off. And then it says in 23, awake, while sleeping thou, Lord, rise, cast us not off forever. Wherefore has here we go right here. Wherefore hideth thou thy face and forgetteth our affliction. They go to affliction. And our oppression. They go to oppression. 25, for our soul is bowed down to the dust, our belly cleaves unto the earth. Arise for our help. And then it says, and redeem us for thy mercy's sake. So he says, and rise and help us and redeem us for thy mercy's sake. So when he says, redeem us for thy mercy's sake, the mercy that he got to David, the tender mercies he got to David, that's what he's saying. Come and help us and deliver us on because of David's sake, because of your relationship with David. So that takes me to 28, Deuteronomy 28, last verse, 68. Deuteronomy 28, 68. Says, okay, let's get it right quick. 28 and 68 says, yeah, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies as bondmen and bondwomen. No man shall buy you, which means no man shall redeem you. Same thing saying over here. They just you trick the words off. Okay. Any comments on Psalm 44? Okay, everybody good? Going to some current events.
Its downward trajectory artificially held up right now by all of this fake money, so that people out there are like, the dollar is fine, while the underlying fundamentals are absolutely collapsing. Just look at Italy over the past few days announcing its intention to want to join and settle transactions using the Russian ruble. In the BRICS nations, wanting to move away from the US dollar, they now are added to a list of other countries who are trying to move away quickly from the US dollar to settle transactions. They see the writing on the wall. For all of this and more, we wanted to bring in the CEO of Lear Capital, Kevin DeMerit, who follows this very, very closely, obviously knee-deep in the precious metal space, seeing what's happening with gold and silver and watching this destruction of the US dollar. Kevin, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Clayton.
So I want to talk about this expansion of BRICS first, because I think there's this total cognitive dissonance in the United States. Really, the mainstream media is ignoring this story. But here you have major U.S. allies in Europe now saying, U.S. dollar, the time has come and gone. What do you say about this?
Well, I think they're right. You know, a lot of these countries are saying that the U.S. government has weaponized the U.S. dollar against Russia and with war and political reasons, and they don't want to be stuck in the same situation. They're looking for something that has value, that isn't getting printed left, right, and center. And this BRICS currency has a lot of implications that could absolutely crush the dollar. And I'm going to say one thing. If this happens, it will be the biggest wealth transfer from nation to another nation I think we've ever seen in the history of the world.
Wow. And how do you mean in terms of my moving away from well, I've heard it in terms of oil transactions, right? So if we take away the amount of oil settled in US dollars, it is an absolute kneecapping of the US economy. And where the wealth then flows is, of course, into Asia, it's into Russia, it's into the Middle East, and away from the US dollar. Is that how you see it transferring?
No, you know, when I first got into this business, I was in international banking. So trade is a big part of how a currency gets valued. So think about this for a second. The BRICS countries want to back this currency, the BRICS currency, by gold, some portion of gold. So let's just say for a second that we're going to trade with the United States and these other countries with just gold. To make a point here, we're just going to use gold. The United States last year had a $960 billion trade deficit. So if we were using gold, we would be $1 trillion less gold in the United States and $1 trillion worth of gold in those other countries, which is exactly what's going to happen if you use this BRICS currency. It's backed by gold. I need to buy the BRICS currency. I need to then give more of the BRICS currency, which is backed by gold, to those countries. They've accumulated gold, and we've lost basically $1 trillion worth of gold. That wealth transfer is the greatest, scheme that these nations could have ever thought of. And think about it: Russia, China, and India, they absolutely love gold. They would love to be able to transfer and use this as an economic unit of transfer, because they're just accumulating the gold and we're losing ours. Brilliant idea, and it crushes the US dollar. Now think about this for a second. It's backed by gold, meaning that if I issue more of that currency, I've got to back more of it by more gold, which pushes the gold price up, which pushes that currency up, and our paper dollar is going to look like crap, and the whole value just absolutely goes away. We will get repatriated back trillions of dollars of US currency back to the United States, and inflation goes.
Wow.
It's absolutely brilliant.
I hadn't thought of it in those terms before. And you're right, the repatriation. So as China wants to get rid of the greenbacks, saying, here we are, we're turning in these US Treasury bonds, we're getting rid of this. All of these countries are getting rid of it, and it's coming back to the United States. And we're sitting there saying, well, this currency is not backed by gold. It's backed by debt. The United States, what is it backed by in the United States? And so now we're sitting on all of this fake paper money, all of this artificially created cash in the United States that's not backed by gold. And then in many ways it becomes worthless. What will it be backed by in the United States? I mean, am I missing something?
You've got an amazing business idea. Now what?
Oh my gosh, I just made my first sale!
You see?
No, this ploy by the BRICS countries is absolutely fantastic. We're going to take your gold, we're going to take something of value, and we're going to send you toys and cars and everything that depreciates, and we're going to grab all the real wealth, right? The tangible asset, we're going to grab that wealth. But if you take it one step further, I believe that the US government sees this coming, and we better get to a digital currency where we can start manipulating values much easier than we can with the paper side of it. So I think this is just one step closer to, hey, we need to be able to do something with this worthless currency. Let's take away zero. I mean, countries around the world have done it for years and years and years. So if it's too bad, a digital currency would be a way to do it easy, where paper, not so much.
But now that's brilliant, and that's what we're moving to. And guys watching this right now, what Kevin is saying is absolutely spot on. So the reason the Fed is moving towards a digital bank central currency, and they've been doing this slowly. We just heard the details here about how this is going to be rolled out from the banking sector, right? And it was a slow roll. They've been planning this since 2015. Right, we're going to shift over to the central bank digital currency. Everything will be digital. We'll provide perhaps a universal basic income, but we will track everything you do. It will be Fed backed. It will not be from the banks. It'll be Fed backed, an unelected group that's going to be providing you with money. It'll be artificial. It'll be digital. It will not be tied to gold. We can print it as much as we want. We can create as many zeros as we want, because it's all fake. And it's all controlled by the Fed, and that's exactly what we're moving towards.
That's right. It's the perfect thing to do if you believe that the US dollar is going to take a hit by these countries that want to back this by gold. And here's what I look for, Clayton, when I invest are tipping points. Where's a tipping point that takes you from one thing to the next? The .com happened in 2000, and then it took another 10 years before the internet really took off. What's happening here with this currency? You're not talking about a country like Tanzania. You're talking about countries that have 3.3 billion people. You've got those 5 countries, India, China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, 3.3 billion people, 40% of the entire population of the world, and they want to move to this currency. You're getting close to 50% as a tipping point when you start adding in all the other countries like Italy and the European countries that you brought up, you hit 50% of the people that says, I'm done with the US dollar. There's your tipping point. And you better understand what's going to happen when that happens. When you're no longer the international reserve currency, you're investing, commodities become much more tough to track, and things can get expensive. Inflation in other countries goes through the roof when you don't have that status.
Well, you guys, of course, deal in silver and gold on a regular basis. This is your, but you're also a big fan of real estate, tangible assets. You and I are both on the same page with that. Like, we invest in real estate, we invest in gold, and we invest in silver. Natalie and I are big believers in all three of those things. When you see, we see the demand right now, silver pushing up, I think it's over 25 right now, $25. So there's increasing demand. We have, I think we have Bank of America with a price target for gold of like $2,500 an ounce. We're at like $1,900 an ounce. Oh, 3,000. Yeah, 3,000. That's right. Yeah. I was saying 25. Yeah, $3,000 an ounce. So where do you see things happening right now with the supply of gold and silver and the demand for tangible assets like that?
To me, right now, silver is absolutely on sale. Hard to get in big quantities. 2-3 years ago, we could get larger quantities, but since the pandemic, the silver supply has really kind of gone down. And there's a couple of reasons. To me, silver is the best double play investment, that I can find. And what I mean by that is that in a good economy, the silver being used in solar, which is just absolutely skyrocketing. We had about 5% of the silver supply being used in solar in 2015. We're up to 15%, and looks like it's going to go even higher. You have silver in water treatment plants, so solar, water treatment plants, medicine, and all the other industrial applications. So if the economy does well, and we're wrong, then silver demand should still go through the roof, and silver looks inexpensive at $25 an ounce. But if we start having these situations that we're talking about with the dollar, the economy goes into a recession, we already know silver can go to $49 or $50 an ounce, because that's exactly what it did in 2008. So to me, it's just a great investment for a portion of someone's portfolio that can play both sides of the economy at this particular point. There's just not that.
Okay. Any comments on that? Okay. Got another one right here. Like I said, these people working on bringing this place down. So, here we go.
Russia is firing cruise missiles at Ukraine. 3 nights and counting, there's been intense bombardment, and this offensive has claimed an unlikely victim, food grain. That's right, food is the new casualty of this war. Not the first time though, but on this occasion the crisis is grave. Russian missiles are hitting Ukraine, and the impact is being felt all the way here in India. New Delhi has been forced to make some tough calls. India has banned the export of rice, and it's a very big deal because India is the world's biggest exporter of rice. And now it has stopped. This has led to panic in the global markets. Look at the headlines that went viral today. The West is worried about the consequences of India's move. They fear it will push up global prices and in turn worsen their cost of living crisis. So what is India's view? What's the strategy, and how will it impact the world? We'll try to answer all these questions tonight, starting with how this crisis began. This week, Russia intensified the attacks on Ukraine. Their missiles hit the port of Odessa. For Moscow, these bombings are a retaliation, revenge for the attack on Crimea, which happened earlier this week. The Kerch Bridge was targeted. It is very important for Moscow. It connects Crimea with mainland Russia. Ukraine did not take responsibility for the strike, but Putin blames Kiev for what happened, and so he's striking back hard. The Russian attacks took lives. At least 2 people have. 20 others were hurt. They also damaged large stocks of food. Some 60,000 tons of grain was burned. Terminals and piers were damaged. And all of it had a bearing on the global markets. They went into a tizzy. Prices shot up dramatically, especially wheat. Wheat prices increased by more than 7%. This is the largest increase since February last year. Why such a sharp reaction? Why are the markets in panic? Because Moscow has called off the grain deal, the Black Sea Initiative. It was brokered by the United Nations. It allowed Ukraine to ship food grains to the world. Now Russia has pulled the plug. It says Ukraine is misusing this deal. Now, the world was already suffering a shortage. Russia's move has made it worse. Before the war, Ukraine and Russia were key sources of grains for the whole world. We're talking about 1/4 of the world's wheat exports, 1/5 of the maize and barley exports. All of this came from Ukraine and Russia. But the war dealt a blow to this supply. The attacks on the Odessa port have made it worse. And what happens when there is a shortage? When traditional suppliers cannot lift the burden, what happens there? Someone else has to step in. So international buyers turn to India. But India does not have so much to spare, it seems. It has the world's largest population. It has to feed its people. Last year, India banned the export of wheat as well, and that ban still remains in place. Now India has banned rice too, the export of rice. This is spooking the world because India is the largest exporter. 40% of the world's rice needs are met through India. 140 countries get their rice from India. In 2022, India exported more than 22 million tons of rice. That's more supply than the next four exporters put together. Which are these next four exporters? Which countries? Thailand, Vietnam, Pakistan, and the United States. So you can see the demand. The orders are coming from everywhere, but now Indian rice is set to go out of the global market. Reports say some varieties can still be exported, but the ban includes two of India's largest export categories, non-basmati white and broken rice. Their export is banned. Some experts say they saw this coming because before the ban, India also tried to restrict these exports. Last year, a new export tax was introduced. All rice exports carried a 20% tax. Which brings us to the question, why is this being done? Why the ban? Like I said, India has its own demand to meet, plus there are shortages. Heavy rains have hit supplies. Prices in India are soaring. In the last 12 months, the price of rice has gone up by more than 11%. In the last month, the increase has been 3%. How do you tame this? By improving the supply, so the exports will have to take a back seat. Plus, we don't really know where this war is going, for how long it will go on, for how long the supply from Ukraine will remain disrupted. There is no clarity. So he also went to BrahMos Airspace, which is a company that makes the BrahMos missile. Again, this is a state-owned entity, but it's a joint venture between Russia and India. Will Argentina buy the Tejas and the BrahMos? Too early to say, but going by some claims, the two sides have held discussions, and this follows.
Okay. Does anybody know anything about that? The rice ban that India got on the world?
Shalom. Yes, sir. I was looking at that because I was flipping through the YouTube and I saw that they were talking about it. They also export rice to 100 countries, and they say that the rice is going up. In used to be $25, $24 a bag. Now they're charging $25 a bag. One of those huge bags. They're charging so much because of the rain shortage. Rainfall is not raining enough.
Okay. Yeah, so you got the Russia that shut down the grain coming out of Ukraine and Russia, and India that shut down the rice. So like I said before, this place is not going to be able to take too much more of this. And it seems as if nobody paying no attention, but you're gonna look up and you're gonna be starving to death because that's exactly what they're doing. They're cutting America off from all angles. Okay. So got a little need to know information right here. This the other side of that.
So you know how people have been talking about the whole de-dollarization thing for a while now? Well, guess what? It's finally starting to gain some serious momentum. Over the past few years, especially since 2008, there have been a bunch of events that have made the dollar less important on the world stage. Countries all over the place are ditching the dollar and trying out some other currencies for their business deals. It's not just one or two countries doing this either. Latin America, Asia, Africa, they're all hopping on the de-dollarization train. And you know what else? Gold is becoming super popular again. And currencies like the yuan are getting a lot more attention in international trade. That is what we will be discussing for this video. But first, hit that like and subscribe button. That way, you won't miss our uploads in Tech Revolution. Let's get the video rolling again. Back in the day, when Latin American countries joined forces to create UNICER, they had this big idea of coming up with a shared currency called sucre, but it never really came to life. Fast forward to 2017, and the world stage was buzzing with talk about the petro yuan. The proposal was that Saudi Arabia would receive yuan instead of dollars for its oil exports to China. This move was like a plot twist in a movie, breaking the agreement Saudi Arabia had with the United States to exclusively sell its oil in dollars. In 2018, the United States decided to slap some serious sanctions on China. China wasn't about to take it lying down, so they came up with their sneaky alternative called CIPS to conduct economic transactions, totally bypassing the US-run SWIFT system. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the United States wasn't playing nice with Russia either. They dropped some heavy-duty sanctions on them back in 2014 because of the whole Crimea situation. And things escalated even further during the war in Ukraine. As a result, Russia got kicked out of the SWIFT mechanism. But Russia wasn't going to sulk in the corner. They developed their mechanism called PESA, like a rebel with a cause. Now let's fast forward to April 2023. According to the International Monetary Fund, the dollar was still a big player, accounting for 54% of the world's reserves. On the other hand, the yuan only had a measly 2.5% of the same reserves, while the euro was strutting its stuff with about 19%. So it seems like the dollar is still king of the hill. But hey, who knows what the future holds? In 2021, China's trade numbers reached an incredible 6.064 trillion US dollars, which is nearly 30% higher than what the United States managed with its 4.691 trillion US dollars. But that's not all. The gap between China and the US has been getting wider, thanks to the US trade deficit with China. It's like China is winning in every corner of the world. Almost every country out there has made China their main trading partner. Aside from that, in 2022, Chinese transactions in their currency, the yuan, were even higher than those in American dollars. According to Bloomberg, the US dollar share of China's international trade dropped from 48.6% in February to 47%. It's like the US dollar is losing its lead factor while China is stealing the show. After the US slapped some sanctions on Russia for its involvement in Ukraine, it cost Russia a whole bunch of money. And you know what happened next. A lot of countries intensified the de-dollarization. Russia got pretty serious about de-dollarization recently. Putin himself signed this fancy executive order in March 2022, saying that countries they don't get along with can't sign natural gas contracts using any currency other than the ruble. And now, this trend is gaining even more momentum. Brazil and Argentina in January 2023 said that they were prepping to trade using their currencies. Also, Iraq decided on February 21 to trade with China using the yuan instead of the dollar. And then in March, France was all like, hey China, we'll sell you 65,000 tons of liquefied gas and you can pay us in yuan. Brazil even struck a deal with China to trade in yuan. Analysts say that one of the things that weakened the dollar was this fancy term called quantitative easing. It started in 2008 and involved printing loads of money, or as they called it, helicopter money. All that extra cash didn't boost production. In fact, over the past 15 years, There's been a whopping 40% increase in dollars floating around. And that's a major reason why we're seeing crazy inflation these days. Along with all of that, Russia is upping its game by trying to settle trade with ASEAN countries using their local currencies. This move comes as Russia faces some Western sanctions over the Ukraine crisis, so they're trying to find alternatives to the mighty dollar. But Russia isn't alone in this de-dollarization trend. Other emerging market economies like China, India, and ASEAN are also jumping on the bandwagon. They're tired of the chaos caused by the global payment system and Western sanctions. So it seems like everyone is looking for ways to make trade smoother and more independent. But
Okay, so we're gonna go to our open up for Q&A. Anybody have any questions or comments about anything they want to talk about before we go off into this dealing with Baal worship? Any comments or anything? Questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So when you go to I think it started in Kings, first Kings, where when the Israelites came in contact with the after they left out of Egypt, this kind of was in Egypt, but it was predominantly in the land of Canaan. And when you understand who Canaan is, Canaan was the son that came forth from when Japhet, they tell you it's Ham, but Japhet raped Noah's wife. This is what actually happened. You know, we got to call it for what it is. And that's when Noah awaked from his sleep and found out what he had done. It was, and he cursed the kid, which is Canaan. What Canaan wasn't on the boat. So why would he wake up and curse Canaan? There was no Canaan mentioned on the boat. So he woke up knowing that Jacob had slept with his mother, his wife, and then she had a seed, which was Canaan. He cursed the seed of Canaan. So the seed of Canaan is later when Noah divided the land up among the people that was on the boat. He gave the land of Israel, that region, the Middle East, to Shem. It was Shem's land. But Canaan, on his way to his land, viewed Shem's land, and he took that. He took the land. That's how Abraham, when you pick the story of Abraham up in the book of Genesis, he's way down in Mesopotamia with Nimrod because he got displaced. And so when you understand that whole situation is the Lord of hosts is fixing that because he brings Abraham out and bring him to the land that was originally his, show it to him, and then promise him that he's going to give him that land, and then he give it to him in Genesis 15. And then the Israelites end up in Egypt. And so all they doing when they come out of Egypt is they coming back to their homeland, which is the land of Canaan. And that's where the drama coming in. They call it the land of Canaan because Canaan has stolen it. But it's actually Ham's land, Shem's land from the beginning. Noah gave it to him, right? And the God that Noah and Shem and all of them dealing with is that's the land where he dwells. He dwells on Mount Zion. So that's how we're gonna pick that up. So the people Canaanites, which is a heathen people, we see their origins, and so they was worshiping these angels. It wasn't Michael ain't the only angel that's in the land. There's angels on top of these mountains, which is high places. That's what a high place is. You know, and so these Canaanites are descended from these angels that slept with women, and so they going up in these mountains where they forefathers at, and worshiping these gods up there. And then God over Israel, he requires clean animal sacrifices. That's what he required from the very beginning. But these fallen angels, because of their nature, you know, they require human sacrifice. They're abominable, so they want humans to be sacrificed to them, whereas the Lord of hosts require the Hebrews and the Israelites to bring, animals, clean animals, the cow and the bull and the ram and the goat, sheep, that sacrifice. So that's where this high place and the high places come from when you hear it in First Kings and Second Kings and in Chronicles. They're going up to where these fallen angels at in these mountains, worshiping them and sacrificing people to them. And the God of Israel condemned that. So that's what we're gonna pick it up here. I'm gonna play this video and kind of give it a little introduction.
For the Israelites. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 5. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto.
So let's look at that, because I think it needs to be clarified. So if you notice, when I was showing you how the Lord of hosts, it's certain people, certain men that he's appearing to, certain people seeing him. The majority of the people is not encountering him. They ain't seeing him, especially Yahweh. They're not nobody seeing him. But there's very few these Israelites and Hebrews that's encountering him. And so when we find out that when they was on Mount Sinai, Yahweh, he told them to, he says, he come to them in a thick cloud, the people. And then he tell them why. So that you can't make no image of me. If you get a chance to see me and gaze upon me, then humans are gonna turn around. The average human, they're gonna turn around and make an image of him and start bowing down. So you got a lot of people saying that, which is what they was doing. They worshiping these images. The people, the gods of the other nations is images. No, that's the image of the God they worshiping. They didn't encounter him, and now they made images of him. But it's a living, breathing deity they're dealing with that's in these mountains. That's what people don't understand it. Just like us, we know when Moses ended up on Mount Horeb, and he said the angel of the Lord came. Who else gonna come? That's where these angels at. They're up in these high places, these mountains. They come down out of these mountains and deal with the women. Like he said, 200 went on Mount Hermon, the plateau, way up on the mountain, and made the oath. And then they left from that plateau that's on Mount Hermon and went and started taking wives, going into women and getting children. So you have to understand that. So yeah, it's images. They got images, bronze images and all that they made, but it's of something they've already seen. Like I was breaking down the fact that groves, a lot of people don't understand that. These groves, these trees, they're going this, they got a tree, it's got a nice pond and greenery around it and all that. And then just where these fallen angels would appear to them. And so wherever they appear to them at, they enshrine that place and make it out of make it out of a holy spot. And then I showed you how, like in Genesis chapter 18, let's look at it right quick. These righteous angels, but we're gonna look at it right quick. Genesis 18. You see that in these three angels came to Abraham. Then it says Abraham was by oak. He was by a big oak tree, right? Verse 5 says, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, comfort ye your hearts, and after that ye shall pass on, or therefore, or ye come to your servant. And they said, so do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent under Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 morsels of meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the heap. And Abraham ran unto the herd, fetched the calf, tender and good, gave it to the young men, and he hastened to dress it. Then verse 8, and he took butter and milk, the calf which he had dressed, set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree. See that? That's in there for a reason. Under the tree, and they did eat. So just like these righteous angels coming to our forefathers, these other people dealing with these Canaanites dealing with these fallen angels. And then wherever they meet them at, they enshrine that place. Make a holy place out of it. That's what grove worship is. They venerated the place where they met this fallen angel at. Okay. So one of the things I was talking to the brother on Clubhouse, and he was saying that these 2 angels came, and Yahweh commanded these 2 angels. So let's look at verse 5. Just a golden nugget. Verse 5 I just read, Genesis 18 says, and I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. So Abraham talking to these 3 angels. I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts. Hearts, with S on. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, see that? So we say, what you talking about? And they said, so do as thou hast said. So think about that. We know that Enoch was afraid when the Lord of hosts sent him go talk to those angels. They were scared, and they found out that the Lord, Lord of hosts said what they had done when they went in the women. And they went to this certain place. In the book of Enoch can tell you they was hiding. They was afraid, and when Enoch came, but Enoch was more afraid of them than they was. So my point is this: if Yahweh standing there, these other angels ain't gonna say shit. The Lord of hosts, Yahweh, the eternal being, the creator of everything, supposedly from what this brother's saying, is there. So they ain't got shit to say. So let's look at it. It says, verse 5, and I will fetch a morsel of bread, comfort ye your hearts, and after that ye shall pass on, or therefore or ye come to your servant. And they said, so do I. So they talking. All of them talking. So if Yahweh was there, they wouldn't be saying shit, like I said. So that's the way, that's these little things that when they hoodwink the scriptures, they didn't have no need to take out. But now it's coming back to haunt them. Okay. Pick this back up. Any comments? Okay.
The 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. When the Israelites left Egypt for the promised land, they got to Mount Sinai, where God gave them the 10 commandments to guide their conduct in the land they were to inherit. The first commandment God gave the Israelites and reiterated the most was the command not to worship idols or bow down to any graven image. God instructed the Israelites not to intermarry with the pagan nations around them, but to avoid their worship practices. One of the reasons why God instructed them to do this was in order to guide them to avoid the sin of idolatry. But the Israelites broke all these laws before they got to the land of Canaan. It doesn't take an extensive read-through of the Old Testament to note the pervasive influence of idolatry in Israel's history. In Exodus chapter 32, while Moses was on the mountain with God, the Israelites reared up a golden calf and made sacrifices to it. Still in the wilderness, the Israelites had sexual affairs with the women of Moab and worshipped their gods. Numbers chapter 25, verses 1 through 2. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women, who invited them to the sacrifices to their gods. The people ate the sacrificial meal and bowed down.
So you have to understand that I'm painting a picture because a lot of people don't have it, what's really going on. So I'm showing you that they're dealing with these angels, just like our Israelites, the Levites and the prophets and different men, kings dealing with these angels. They see them, they're talking to them, and so these Canaanite people and these other people, they see these fallen angels. They're appearing to certain ones of them. They see them. So they conversate with them. So you got to ask yourself, how in the hell you get from making an idol to taking that idol humans and burning them in the fire? No, somebody telling you to do that. It's commandments. It's somebody commanding you to do that. Just like the Israel, they got commandments, the 10 Commandments. So somebody telling you to do that, you just gonna go from, you're gonna make some kind of golden image and then you're just gonna start burning children to it? No, it's way bigger than that. They don't want you to know that because they already took the book of Enoch out. They didn't tell you the origins of how everything started. All this drama started from angels coming down. But they don't want you to know that. They want you to go down this yellow brick road with Christianity. But they deal with these fallen angels, and these fallen angels commanding them to do it. And then not only that, these fallen angels, they didn't receive the perverted spirit. They didn't receive a perverted sexual spirit in them, because once they crossed over and started sleeping with these women, they got this spirit on them. So like the man was just saying, not only do they sacrificing the children, they're doing everything else on the sun sexually, absurd and sexually, in the process of burning the kid. And so it's not just, ain't no damn image telling them to do all that and causing them to do all that. They dealing with beings, okay?
Before these gods, God raised a prophet named Hosea and used his marriage to depict how Israel had forsaken him to cleave to other gods. Gomer, who was Hosea's wife, was the unfaithful wife of Hosea the prophet. The Lord used Hosea and Gomer's relationship as an object lesson to show how Israel had sinned against him by following other gods, and how God remains faithful even when his people don't. Hosea represented God, and his promiscuous wife represented the Israelites. Of all the gods Israel was drawn to, bigger influence on them than Baal. The Israelites constantly struggled to stop the worship of Baal, despite the warnings God gave them through the prophets. Who is Baal? Why was it difficult for the Israelites to stop worshiping him? In addition to the lessons we can learn from the idolatrous practices of Israel, we will provide answers to these questions from the scriptural perspective. Baal is a Canaanite god worshipped by ancient Phoenicians and Canaanites. He was regarded as a supreme male deity who aided fertility and had power over rain, wind, and cloud. The female goddess Ashtoreth is considered to be the wife of Baal. It is believed that Baal has the ability to deliver people, animals, and crops from sterility and death. The Israelites began to worship him alongside the pagan nations around them after the death of Joshua, at the time judges ruled Israel. Judges chapter 2, verses 10 through 11 says, "And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers."
Yeah, so let's look at something that he just mentioned. I don't want to let it get away. Yeah, this well, like he said, dealing with these fallen angels, and notice it says Ashtaroth Astral, that's a female. Baal got a wife. So this is where it's coming from. This what we're dealing with now. Now we go to Yahweh. We know he don't need no wife. He made a woman for Adam, because Adam is not a eternal being. Adam has to reproduce himself. So that's why he put Adam to sleep, made the woman, and then the woman on the earth bring forth seed for the man. So he don't have no wife. But now you see where it's coming from. Wisdom is you know, got to be a woman. It's got to be a woman. Yahweh there's got to be a woman there. But that ain't the case. That ain't how it works. So you see where it's coming from. Baal got a wife, Astral. Okay, on the wicked side.
And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim. Now the question is, why was the worship of Baal a constant struggle for the Israelites? There were factors responsible for the strong attraction the Israelites had for the worship of Baal. Some of these factors were induced by the Israelites, while some were innate in the religious rites involved in the worship of Baalim. 1. The worship of Baal involved ritual prostitution. One of the leading causes of Israel's attachment to the worship of Baal is the sexual pleasure they derive from it. Since the worship of Baal encouraged temple prostitution, it was a new religion that fostered sexual freedom among the Israelites.
So you see right here, there ain't no idol or no goat or no calf gonna make you something else going on. Okay.
A suitable scriptural reference for this is Numbers chapter 25, verse 1 through 3, which records the events at Baal Peor. Numbers chapter 25, verse 1 through 3. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel.
Okay, so let's look at that right quick. Connect some dots right quick. So Numbers 23, what he was just reading. Numbers 25, right? Connected. Numbers are okay. 25. It says, start at verse 1, I think. It says, and Israel abode in Shechem, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab, right? Then verse 2, and they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. Their gods. And the people did eat and bow down to their gods. So let's go back to the serpent in the garden with Eve. And what he told her, he says, chapter 3, says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, have God said, Yahweh, have God says, he talking to him. This ain't no idol. Same thing over here with what they doing. You know, he says, God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. They go to the sexual part of it, right? So it's all there. It says it ain't no stop, still going on today. 4, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Here you go. For God, Yahweh do know that, that's capital G. Yahweh doeth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. They go to gods. 200 angels came down. Just gods knowing good and evil. So what happened with Satan? Long before the 200 came down, Satan was cast out. That's where he came to the garden. He was cast out. He came to the garden, but the Bible tells you it was a third of the angels cast out with him. So he's just telling her, God doeth know in the day that you eat thereof, it's gonna be as us. It ain't just him. And we see right here in the land of Canaan, it's God's. And we're gonna see in a minute, it's more than one Baal. It's Baals with an S on it. Check it out.
At that time, an Israelite called Zimri brought a Midianitish woman into the tent. He did this while Moses and the rest of the Israelites wept for their sins. In Numbers chapter 25, verses 6 through 8, when Phinehas saw them, he went with a javelin and killed them in the tent. This was viewed as a righteous act because Phinehas was viewed to have stopped the plague. Numbers chapter 25, verses 6 through 8. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. When Phinehas and the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent, and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. What Zimri did with this Midianitish woman is an especially offensive example of the sin that was happening all around Israel. But first and foremost, the Israelites found it hard to quit the worship of Baal because it was a practice that appealed to the flesh. Sex was dignified, and temple prostitution was a norm. The worship of Baal was a religion that appealed to the works of the flesh. It was a religion of pleasure, a religion of sin. Archaeological excavations have produced exhumed statues with sexual features depicting sexual arousal. Moreover, we know that feasting, dancing, and music set the mood of sexual immorality. The fertility dance of the worshiper of Baal, especially by the temple prostitutes, was seductive. Most likely, at the end of the erotic dances, they retreated to Baal's temple for sexual relations. This is closely linked to what happened when the Israelites molded a golden calf and worshipped it. Exodus chapter 32, verse 6. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. Sexual immorality is one of the baits used by the devil to allure people from God. When it is introduced into a worship system, it is more difficult to resist. It appeals to the carnal man, the fleshly man. You cannot save this body. This was one of the reasons the Israelites could hardly free themselves from Baal. They enjoyed the pleasure he afforded them, the pleasure he offered their flesh. 2. The desire of the Israelites to become like other nations. National peer pressure was another leading factor in Israel's attachment to Baal. The nations around them worshipped Baal, so they did not want to operate under a different mode of worship. Israel loved to imbibe foreign cultures. This is evident in the fact that they demanded a king. They wanted Samuel to appoint a king over them like other nations. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 5. And said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king, and judge us like all nations. However, the people of Israel had no genuine reason for demanding a king. They just wanted to follow the structural settings of other nations' governments. That was the same issue they had when it came to worship. They wanted to be like other nations.
All right, same now.
First,
like I was saying,
The fact that
they want to say because Baal got a wife, now Yahweh got a wife. You know, it's wisdom. Okay, so we go another one right here. Any comments so far?
No, sir.
Okay.
Baal and Dagon, the ancient gods of the Bible. During ancient times, a god known as Baal was worshipped throughout Canaan and Phoenicia. During the Judges period, the practice of Baal worship penetrated Jewish religious life. Judges 3:7, New American Standard Bible. So the sons of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they forgot the Lord their God, and served the Baals and the Asherah.
The practice of Baal worship became widespread in Israel during the reign of Ahab. The method of Baal worship also affected Judah. 2 Chronicles 28, 1-4. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 16 years. He did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord as his father David had done, but he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. He also made cast metal images for the Baals. Furthermore, he burned incense in the valley of Ben Hinnom, and burnt his sons in fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord had driven out from the sons of Israel. He sacrificed and burned incense on the high places,
high
on
mountain,
the hills,
high places,
and under every green tree.
the green tree.
It's important to remember that the plural form of the word Baal is Baalim, which means Lord. In addition to being considered a fertility god, Baal was also thought to help the earth produce crops and humans produce offspring.
So this long before they concocted JC, Baal was, they had Baal as a counter to the Lord of Hosts. He trying to operate like the Lord of Hosts, like Yahweh. That was just, he was a forerunner before they concocted JC. Because now they got JC operating like the Lord of Hosts.
Cows emphasized one or another of his attributes and designed particular sects of Baalism. Numbers 25:3 depicts Baal of Peor, while Judges 8:33 depicts Baal Berith. The word's etymology shows that Baal was viewed as the landlord of a specific location, thereby restricting its use to people who were no longer drifters but had settled down. These
they got geographically. That's why it's got an S on it, more than one of them. And we go back to when the earth was divided, just like we saw in Daniel chapter 10. Gabriel said, I have to go and fight against the prince of Persia. And then when he gone, I got to fight against the prince of Grecia. Them Baals. That's just another word, Lord. Just like Israel, David got a Lord. These other people, these Canaanites got a Lord. A prince. A principality that's over them. Baal. More than one.
Local Baals were thought to be in control of agriculture, creatures, and humanity's fertility. It was crucial to winning their favor, especially in places like Baal, where there are few natural streams or springs and rainfall is unpredictable. This led to the adoption of extreme practices. Baal eventually ascended to the position of preeminent deity in the region.
Right.
Part of this process, according to some researchers, can be traced back to the Ugaritic scriptures. Baal is identified as the son of Dagon. Dagon is one of the Bible's most ancient gods. We will cover this deity later in the video. Scriptures of Baal depict him wearing a helmet decorated with bull's horns, representing fertility and strength. He carries a club or mace in one hand, probably meaning thunder, and a spear embellished with leaves in the other, possibly representing both lightning and vegetation. In Aramean sculptures, Baal is depicted riding a bull. Anath, referred to as the Virgin Anath, was Baal's spouse and sister, and shared many of his escapades. The evidence indicates that Baal and other Canaanite deities were worshipped in Egypt.
More than one.
However, they didn't become a severe threat to the religion of the Egyptians. The situation was different in Israel, where, through the process of syncretism, the worship of Yahweh was profoundly influenced and threatened by alien elements from the Baal cults. This was due to two main factors. First, the Israelites did not drive out the Canaanites, but intermarried with them, thus raising the problem of the interrelationship between Yahweh and Baal. Second, Yahweh had given Israel a significant victory over the Canaanites, and his supremacy was unquestioned. Baal was considered the most powerful of all gods, eclipsing El, who was seen as rather weak and ineffective. In various battles, Baal defeated Yam, the god of the sea, and Mot, the god of death and the underworld. Baal's sisters/consorts were Ashtoreth, a fertility goddess associated with the stars, and Anath, a goddess of love and war. Baal worship was rooted in sensuality and involved ritualistic prostitution in the temples. At times, appeasing Baal required human sacrifice, usually the firstborn of the one making the sacrifice. Jeremiah 19:5. And have built the high place of Baal to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, a thing which I did not command nor speak of, nor did it ever enter my mind. Baal's priests worshipped their deity with riotous rites that featured ecstatic shouts and self-inflicted harm. 1 Kings 18:28. So they cried out with a loud voice and cut themselves according to their custom, with swords and lances, until blood gushed out on them. Before the Hebrews entered the promise.
So notice what he said. They cried out. They cried out. So who they crying out to? To an image? No, they're dealing with somebody. Somebody they're dealing with. It's like they're just like all the prophets. And King David and all them, they crying out to the Lord. They're not crying out to some image. It's something that they're dealing with. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. Okay?
This land, the Lord God forewarned against glorifying Canaan's gods. But Israel bent to idolism anyway. Deuteronomy 6:14-15. You shall not follow other gods, any of the gods of the people who surround you, for the Lord your God who is in the midst of you is a jealous God. So follow him, or else the anger of the Lord your God will be kindled against you, and he will wipe you off the face of the earth.
Yes,
During the reign of Ahab and Jezebel, at the height of Baal worship in Israel, God directly confronted the paganism through his prophet Elijah. First, God showed that he, not Baal, controlled the rain by sending a drought lasting 3.5 years. Elijah then went public. He set up a meeting with King Ahab. 3 years had passed since Elijah declared that there would be no rain. The stage was set for a showdown on Mount Carmel between 850 Baal prophets and one God prophet. How long will you waver between two opinions? Elijah challenged the audience. If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. Here was Elijah's dare. Let's have a competition. Let the God who is God respond with fire from heaven. That was a good test. And Baal, the storm god, should be able to send down some lightning. Elijah gave them every advantage before mocking their futile efforts. Baal's prophets spent hours pleading, shouting, and cutting themselves, but he didn't respond. Then Elijah prepared the sacrifice before asking God to show the people his glory. Fire fell and consumed the sacrifice, the water, and the altar as soon as he said his prayer.
What is a home warranty? It's a one.
Lord, he is God. The Lord is God. They couldn't help but notice that God was alive and well. But the Lord God wasn't done yet. He reactivated the rain. Elijah prayed 7 times in a row before the rain began to fall. Elijah, drenched, dashed down the mountain. He demonstrated that God is alive and well. God is alive and well. You can display it both privately and publicly in your life. Finally, in Matthew 12:27.
Okay, so like I said before, we see right here, you know what's really going on with this Baal, what they and who they're dealing with. So you got another example. I'm in the book of Adam and Eve, and this is when you understand that it was 10 men that Melchizedek, just like you got Melchizedek is the title, Baal is the title. So, Adam was Melchizedek, Seth was a Melchizedek, and then you get all the way back when the time when Noah came, but right before Enoch came, uh, Jared was Melchizedek, and they was up on this plateau, big plateau, separate from Cain's descendants. Cain's descendants had grew, multiplied, and he didn't want them around them, so they was living up on a big old plateau. And they can see Cain's descendants down there, so they trying to these fallen angels and can't using Cain's descendants to try to lure them off the mountain. So let's look at this right quick. You probably hadn't heard this or whatever, but so it says, then Satan and 10 of his hosts. So go back to the garden when he said, "You're gonna become as us, gods with an S on it." So I let you know he came in the garden, but he wasn't the only one there. So it says, then Satan and 10 of his hosts transformed themselves into maidens with more grace than any other in the entire world. And they came out of the river, they came out of the water in front of Adam and Eve. And they said among themselves, "Come, we will look at the faces of Adam and Eve, who are of the men on the earth. And they are beautiful, and their faces look different than ours." And they came to Adam and Eve and greeted them, and they stood amazed at them. So, like I said, keep in mind that this is why the people doing what they're doing. They ain't causing no idol, it's because they having these encounters with these beings. So then you keep going. It says, and did Adam and Eve got up and prayed to God, and while Satan and his host went down into the river in front of Adam and Eve, so they would see them going back to their world. It was another world, right? Anyway, so we're gonna get to later on to get to Jared, and this is what happened right here. Remember what they got this perverted spirit on them because of what they done with these women. So it says, okay, I'm gonna start at 37. Then the old one said to them, "We are strangers in your land. Bring us some of the food and drink." That's what Abraham did with the Lord of hosts. Bring us food and drink, and bring yourselves and your women, so we can entertain and refresh ourselves with you. So those three angels that came to Abraham, they ain't asking no women. And 38. And when these men heard these words of the old one, every one of the king's sons brought his wife, and another brought his daughter, and so many women came to them, everyone calling out to Jared either for himself or for his wife. But when Jared saw that what they did, his very soul wrenched itself from them, and he would not taste their food or drink. The old one saw him as he wrenched himself from them, and said to him, "Do not be sad. I am the great elder, as you shall see me do yourself in like manner." Then he spread his hands and took one of the women, and 5 of his companions did the same in front of Jared, and that he should do as they did. But when Jared saw them doing their wickedness, he wept and said in his mind, "My father's never acted like this." And then he spread his hands and prayed with a fervent heart and much weeping, and begged God to deliver him from their hand. So, like I said, this is why the people doing what they doing. They ain't no idols. It's because they coming down here and they dealing with them. They interacting with them. We saw what was going on in Sodom. That's what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. They ain't not, they making images of these beings, but they're not. It's not that they're not worshiping the image because they just created an image. They worshiping the image because it's resembles something they're dealing with, a being they're dealing with. And that's why, like the guy said, it was so Israel could never get away from it. So they come right back and trick them off, and again they get back into the most stuff. Just kept going round and round in circles And even to the day, I'll play a little bit of this and we'll close out. It's still going on today.
Throughout the Old Testament, we read about a false god named Baal. Over and over again, this false god is presented. It is clear to see that there are several reasons as to why the Israelites kept turning their backs on God and would return to the worship of Baal instead. In our modern day world, we can see elements of Baal worship. There is a return of Baal worship that we are witnessing. One of the leading causes of Israel's attachment to the worship of Baal is the sexual pleasure they derived from it. Since the worship of Baal encouraged temple prostitution, it was a new religion that fostered sexual freedom among the Israelites. A suitable scriptural reference for this is Numbers chapter 25, verses 1 through 3, which records the events at Baal Peor. Numbers chapter 25, verses 1 through 3. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods.
Yes.
And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Baal worship is alive and well in our world today, and we can see this in our culture. We live in a world that worships at the altar of pleasure. As long as it feels good, it's fine. This is why Baal worship is so prevalent in the Old Testament. It was a religion that appealed to the flesh. It appealed to the carnal man. All the carnal flesh wants is pleasure, and the flesh is deceitful. It only wants the gratification of pleasure, but the flesh never ever reminds you of the consequences of pleasure seeking. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 3, New King James Version.
Okay, so we see right there, we're continuing on right to the days, but it's like I said, it's got an origin to it. It ain't just pop up out of nowhere. It's been going on and on. It started way back in the garden. What I just showed you, the serpent said that, you know, he came in the garden for one thing. That was to interact with Eve. That was sexual encounter with Eve. But like I said, he wasn't by himself. Okay. Anybody got any comments on that before we close out? Anybody have anything they want to add? Questions?
Shalom. Like he said, it's still today, I think over, I don't know how to pronounce the name of this country, that they still do worship in Baal.
Right.
They still worship the ram as of today.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much
So
all.
I don't. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I say it's pretty much all over. You know, it's Baal worship. It just his name changes. Like we just saw that what these fallen angels had the ability to do, to shape shift and transform themselves. So the same, you know, we still with the same deities. These eternal beings. Most High always left. He leaves a remnant. He left a remnant of them, just like he left a remnant of Israel, and he got a remnant of Esau. So it's a remnant of them. You know. So it's nothing new under the sun. It's just more and more of them because of the, you know, the giants that they created, and when those giants died, those are wicked spirits. So the evil increased because of you got these wicked spirits running around, and not only that, you got descendants that came from the fallen angels, from these giants that's still here. So you have a whole like a kingdom. You know, but like I said, they painted a different picture for us on how that kingdom is set up. Because everybody on the planet didn't ascend from Adam. But they want you to think that by the story they told you about JC, but he came and died for all blood, all people on the earth, and that's a lie. It's people that came that ascended from these fallen angels. It's people on the planet that ascended from serpent, from Cain, that don't have nothing to do with the Creator. Okay. So, anybody got anything before we go? Okay. I'm gonna see everybody tomorrow at 8 o'clock for our reading through the Tanakh. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.